Okay, we're live. We're live on back. As we proceed to give you what you need, as we proceed to give you what you need. Welcome back, family. Welcome back. Uh, man, last time when I said, as we proceed to give you what you need, and then I said, as we proceed to give us what we need. In my mind, I was thinking that was from some quote unquote old school conscious rappers. I thought it was like some Gangstar or I forget exactly like Diggable Planets and those quote unquote old school conscious rappers, MCs, KRS-One, um, those brothers that my pops used to have us listening to. And so I was saying it with such passion and such energy. And I'm gonna continue to say it, God willing. And then I went to go look into it, man. That's from P. Diddy. Man, that's from P. Diddy and Biggie Smalls from the Biggie Smalls song. I'm tripping. But you know what though? Hey, ain't no telling where you're gonna find truth. So as we proceed to give us what we need, I welcome you back to another session of Sun Studies. Um, I'm greeting you in peace. In the name of Allah, who appeared in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom we forever and ever give praise and thanks for raising a divine leader, teacher, guide, and example in the person, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. In these two great and holy names, I greet the brothers and the sisters in the universal understanding of peace of Assalamu alaikum, which simply means may peace be with you. So as we proceed to give us what we need during these sun study sessions, um, one of the, well, doing my best to eliminate filler words such as so that will be a task during our sun studies, as well as I'm reviewing a dream I had last night. It was a interesting dream to say the least. So, for those of you who don't know, I own a business called Waterwise Enterprise, where we install self-sufficient off-grid rainwater harvesting systems. So you have full, complete control and independence over your water system. One of the biggest things that I hear in terms of complaints is, oh, I thought that was illegal. Regardless of that, I mean, there's a science to it. We can go into it, an actual factual mathematical uh, truth to that. Certain states and areas, there are standards and regulations and rules. So there is a factual part to that thought. However, since when was seeking independence truly legal? Whence, check. Anyway, it seems like the sound is having issues here on YouTube. Anyway, not to get too far off track, my dream that I was having. So, in my dream, I was out in what we refer to as the field or out in the world, basically, doing work and taking measurements for some gutters and things like that. And um, as I'm working, the sun is blinding me and I can barely see. I can just barely see through my dream. And I'm still working. And as I'm looking around, nobody else is being affected. There was the owner of the home that I was working at. He was proceeding like nothing was happening. The owner of the home was having a bunch of work done. He was having his complete water system redone. He was having his roof and gutters redone. And he had a bunch of workers at his house who were doing work. And none of the other workers seemed to be affected. And all I could think is, man, I got to get back to my truck and get my sunglasses. and I would just being affected by the sun. I could barely see, and as I'm continuing to work, I'm doing my best to do what I can with whatever ability that I have, and it's limited. So I said, I got to get back to my truck and get my sunglasses. And I'm also tripping out as to why nobody else is not being affected. Not that I was looking to see if they had sunglasses. I didn't go to that depth, but it just kept following me. It just seemed like it was only in my eyes. I was look and I could barely see, but I could sense that they weren't affected because they just continued on with their work. And then when I left the work site, which was this man's home, I exited out of the front gate or the side gate. And no matter which direction I turned, the sun just continued to blind me to where I had limited sight. I could barely see no matter which way I turned. But everyone I came across, they were not affected either. They just continued on with their day. And I'm like figuring out, why is this happening? What's going on? So I get to my truck and I'm fumbling around in the truck looking for my sunglasses and I couldn't find it. I could barely see. Even inside of the truck, I could barely see. Even inside of the truck, I could barely see. The sun was blinding me. I could barely see through my no matter where I went, no matter where I turned. Like I turned, so I just could barely see. And I couldn't figure out why this was. And then there was somebody around the corner. I actually passed them by and they were smoking and they were like, "Hey, you want to burn?" And I was like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm good." I was just trying to figure out why couldn't they see and I couldn't. So I'm still trying to figure this out. I like I said, vividly remember this in the dream. And then finally my truck transformed into this like bus. It was like the city buses, but a little bit smaller, not like the short bus on the school, uh, the short buses for the school buses, but it was like a city bus, but it was shorter. It just transformed into that, and I ended up driving in the opposite direction. So my truck was facing this way, and I couldn't see, and I was searching for my sunglasses, and even I put them on, I still couldn't see. The sun wasn't giving me. I wasn't allowed to, or not allowed, but I wasn't able to see. And then what happened is the truck transformed into a school bus, a small school bus, and then I ended up facing the opposite direction, and I still could barely see, but I could see a little bit better. It was almost like the sun was going down in nighttime outside, but I could still barely see through my eyes. And then I'm just like, okay, so I slowly was driving this small school bus, and then in front of me was this young black boy. His name is Zaki, and like I just remember thinking, what was he doing? He don't see I'm driving here. And he just stood right there in front. But it was like a distance. So I could see him well enough. Maybe it was like, I don't know, 100 feet. So I could barely see from the sun. But the sun was going down outside. But in my eyes, it was still there. But I had limited vision. But I could see enough while I'm driving. It was intense. And then I'm still driving the same speed, and then the little black boy, goes into the middle of the road. I'm like, what is he doing? And then I end up slowing down, stopping, opening up the bus, and then that was like the end of the dream. And I couldn't figure out I was like, what none of that meant. Couldn't figure out none of it, what was going on. Ended up Google searching, what does it mean when the sun in your dream is blinding you, and nobody else. And it was saying that it's possible that there's a certain level of truth that I'm not taking responsibility for, or that I'm not accepting it. It's like I'm avoiding, some responsibility, and that nobody else was able to see it. Nobody else was blinded by that light or that sun except me. And I'm trying to get my work done in my business, but it's affecting me. So I got to take some time to
to decode that and sit on that. But I thought that was very interesting, especially considering the fact that we transitioned from the title of these sun study sessions, or these study sessions, from Sunday study to actually sun studies, because that's the truth. So, that was something I gotta sit on and understand and decode and pray over and pray on. Before we continue, pray you doing well. Welcome in, sister. Assalamu alaikum. We're gonna get prayer. My Lord, grant me that I may be grateful for thy favor which thou hast bestowed on me and my family, and that I may do good even as thou art pleased with, and admit me by thy mercy among thy righteous servants. Amen. So I pray you all are well, healthy as humanly possible, regardless of your conditions. I pray that you are healthy mentally, especially physically, emotionally, spiritually, as well as financially. I pray you are acquiring financial health in every, or holistic health, really, in every area of your life, health holistically. And I pray also that we know that that comes with a certain cost. There's nothing free. They say that if you come across a get rich quick scheme, you're the one who's getting schemed on, and that's an actual fact. I've learned that many times, that if somebody comes to you with a great business idea and they're projecting like you're going to get rich quick without doing any work, or they say it's an easy fast way to make money, 9 times out of 10 you're the fast way. You are the fastest way for them to get that money, and so you're being victimized. And then if it's like a pyramid scheme, the only way you're going to get your money back is if you victimize someone else financially. And so that's the same thing when it comes to whether it be physical health. Somebody says that you could lose weight real fast, you're probably going to be doing something that's not actual healthy. That's not actually healthy for you. If somebody says mentally you'll learn something really quick, you're most likely not going to be retaining the information that's valuable to you. Same thing with emotionally. If someone says we can heal emotionally quickly, it's most likely going to be what's called avoidance, emotional avoidance, or sweeping something under the rug without actually facing it head on. And I know that uh, 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 I am responsible for doing things like that, where, I get over things so quickly without actually confronting it with the person who's affected. Just because I get over it quickly doesn't mean that emotionally the person that's affected also gets over it. So that could be the same thing of like trying to heal quickly. There's no get rich quick. There's no learn real quick. There's no heal quick. Um, Quick is a facade. Quick is a scam. Same thing with spirituality. There's no fast track, cheat code, hack to spiritual quote unquote enlightenment, or as my father likes to call it, endarkenment. There's no fast track. There is as Islam calls it, a straight path, but there is no get rich quick. Exactly. No fast forward. It's all on present time, staying in time, on time, all the time, in the now. And so that when we take a holistic approach to health, that same approach goes to a holistic approach to whether you say unhealthy or death. Fast food is death food, right? So if it's not taking you a while to cook your food, then most likely it's going to be killing you. And so that's a decent approach for every area. So we started with the finances. Somebody says get rich quick, you're the one getting schemed on. Okay. Um, so today's, like I said, I pray everyone is well, healthy. Um, Today's topic for our studies is an invincible truth: Islam for the so-called Negro. Now, if you were here last week, you may recall that we spoke on Islam for the so-called American Negro. Today, we're going into Islam for the so-called Negro. And as we were closing out last week's study session, I made mention that the term Negro has roots in Latin. Now, Latin is like the father of European languages, whether you go Spanish, Italian, whether you go Portuguese, and there's a few other Latin root languages. The term Negro has its Latin root, and the further you trace back, the closer you get to the message that these Caucasians were wanting to transmit, what they meant when they called us Negro. In Latin, the root is necro, and in Spanish, which is a child of Latin, negro or negro means black. So in Latin, necro means dead. So when these Caucasians traveled the earth and they were looking at quote unquote black people or darker people or aboriginal original people on the planet, instead of viewing them as human beings, they viewed them as surface, negro, meaning black, or necro, meaning dead. Because wherever the Europeans traveled, they were speaking Latin, they were speaking Italian, they were speaking, even French has Latin roots. European language, even English, the English we speak here in America is a grafted, devilish bastard language to the end result that we speak. But the origins, you can't even really call it origins because Latin is still grafted from original, so it's still a devil language. But to just stay on track, when we say Negro in English, the European origin of Negro is negro and necro. So everywhere that the Europeans traveled on the face of the planet Earth, no matter where they traveled, and they viewed the Aboriginal people who were darker, melanated as we know today, they called them Negro or negro or necro, meaning dead and black. Which is interesting enough if we fast forward to today and we say this is the day of resurrection. It's us collectively as original, indigenous, and native people are rising from that term of death that we've been subjected to, that necro. If you understand like necrophiliac, which is somebody who is sexually attracted to death. So necro, meaning dead. So I say all of that to say that when the Europeans traveled the planet, they didn't just kidnap and bring negros or necros to the quote unquote North America, and then that was it, and then everybody else was just native. Everywhere they went and there was original people, they were calling them Negroes or necros. Doesn't matter if they were in Australia, where you have the Aborigines, those was Negroes to them, to the Europeans. Whether you go to South or Central America, whether you go deep into Mexico, it was Negros. They put Negro on all of these different, they labeled all these different people as Negro. It just depended on the area that they were in. Another term for this blackness in Greek is melanin, or excuse me, mela. In Greek, mela. So you have an island in the Pacific called Melanesia. Well, if you look at the etymology of Mela and Nesia, Nesia means land. Like Indonesia, meaning Indian land. Or Polynesia, poly meaning multiple, Nesia meaning land. Micro meaning small, Nesia meaning land, small lands or small islands. So if you look at the root etymologically of the Greek, remember we talked about these European languages, so Latin and Greek. Greek, the root of black or mela, or excuse me, the root of mela means black, and then Nesia. So it was the land of black people, Melanesia, the land of black folks, black people. So I don't want us to get too caught up on this term of so-called Negroes and think that it's just us as black folks. Remember I told you about that Dave Chappelle skit where he said the word faggot, and then the director was like, you can't say that. And he was like, why? Why can I say faggot, but why can I not say faggot, but I can say nigga? And the producer was like, because you're not gay. And he was like, well, I'm not a nigga either. So that's a long process of us embodying and accepting a term that we had no business doing that. And I blame people like Tupac, who was like, yeah, niggers was the ones who was getting hung from the trees by chains or rope, and niggas is the ones with the gold chains hanging from our neck. And he was attempting to do what original people have been known to do, which is take something negative and try to transmute it into something positive. That's how we get quote unquote soul foods. We took the chitlins that the slave master gave us, the worst weed vegetation that we know as collard greens, the worst parts of the chicken, the worst parts of the meat, and the worst parts of the foods, such as corn, made that into cornbread. So we took the worst and attempted to transmute it into the best that we could make it. So that's a very admirable trait of original people. However, when we have they say when you know better, you should do better. But the truth of the matter is when you do better is when you do better. Because there's a lot of people who know better and still don't do better. So we now know better, we just have to do better. And so when we do better, that's when we do better. Now, with all that being said, Tupac attempted to take something negative like nigger, which we know is negro, death, and necro, meaning black, and he tried to transmute it into something positive as nigga and use that as a term of endearment. And now we know that the whole planet is using nigga as some type of term of endearment. And now with all that, people have been fighting over who can say nigga and who can't say nigga. Black folks are saying only black people should say nigga. And then now you got Mexicans, Asians, you got Pacific Islanders. Everybody says nigga. Everybody calls everybody nigga. Even white folks, probably when nobody's looking, call each other nigga. But on the surface, they say, oh, only black people can say that. So it puts us in such a strange predicament. Whereas I also know people who say, oh, no, nigga is not something bad. What happened is we took the term from Ethiopia, negus, Negus, which means royalty or king. And it just happened that we misspoke and misstated it, and it turned into nigga. And it's actually negus. I'm not hearing none of that. I think that's nonsense. I think that what we're trying to do is shortcut and try to make something negative and make it positive, where we could just bypass the whole nonsense. Now I know how. I mean, I'm very aware how easy it is to say nigga. It feels great to say because it's almost as if like it's something that connects us together, where we could say it but they can't. And so I get it. Uh, However, I will say this. Since the entire planet now has come to a point where they've defined black folks as nigga, and when we look at the term Negro and we only think of black people in America, and the same thing with nigga, we only think about black people in America, but now the entire planet can utilize this word freely, nigga. What I'm saying is to rewind and to look at how each one of us has been used by our collective enemy on the planet, who has forced us to view ourselves as less than human. The actual root of nigga, nigger, negro is necro, meaning dead, and blackness. And that's how we were viewed. We were viewed as black and dead. And the irony of that is, when the Europeans first laid eyes on us, whether we were in our temples, in our kingdoms, and they viewed us as black and dead, that's when we were true and living. Whereas the moment that they, meaning the European Caucasians, took us from our homelands, or stole and removed our practices. Because what's causing the difficulty is a specific group of people were stolen from Africa, brought to the hills of North America. A specific group of people was removed from their homes in North America and put into, concentration camps. A specific group of people in the Pacific Islands were kidnapped from one land and brought over and dropped over to random places. And they were all had the same thing in common, viewed as Negro, black, and dead. But when they kidnapped us, these Caucasian Europeans, when they kidnapped us from our homelands, we were true and living. We had control over our environments in the oneness of nature. But when we were taken from these different areas or removed from our homes, it was that removal that put us on that fast track towards death. So the irony is, when they found us and they called us dead, we were alive. And then when they took responsibility over us and made us into servants for their vision, that's what killed us. That's what actually made us dead. And so when we rewind and we look at today, meaning this day in which we live, in the day of judgment, the day of resurrection, it's that death that was forced onto us that we have to be resurrected from. And so my point being is that it's not just the so-called Negro in America, as the article suggested last week. Now it says here today, in this day, Islam for the so-called Negro. And I'm asking the question, who is the so-called Negro? And so-called meaning, what have we been called? You know, that quote that says, it ain't what they call you, it's what you answer to. So I'm asking, if it's not just limited to America, who else is the so-called Negro? Where are we and who are we? If Negro means black, I just told you about the lands in Melanesia. That means black, in the Solomon Islands, Fiji. No matter where these Caucasians went to, here in the hills of North America, they call it manifest destiny, where they just proceeded west and took over and left death and destruction in their wake. So who all did they leave in their wake? Who all did they leave dead in their trail? Last week, we also spoke on, and we were studying the root of Islam. Because today we are continuing on our studies where it says Islam for the so-called Negro. Islam for the so-called Negro. Assalamu alaikum, sister. I'm going to address that. I will. I just don't want to lose my focus, but I think that's a great question. And so what I'll do is, at the end, I'm going to address all the questions and the answers, but please keep that in mind. Last week we spoke on Islam for the so-called Negro. It was Islam for the American so-called Negro. Islam having the same root of the Hebrew shalom, the trilateral root, salameh, or sin, lem, mim, the same trilateral root, meaning peace and completion. And then we went into the Holy Quran, chapter 5, verse 3, where it says, "This day I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor to you and chosen for you Islam as your religion." So when we look at this term Islam and we look at this term salam or shalom, and we understand that its root means complete. And then Allah in the Holy Quran in chapter 5, verses 3 is telling us, "I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor for you and chosen for you Islam as your religion." A question comes to my mind. Well, if it says, "and completed my favor to you," my question is, what does complete look like? We understand that Islam is perfect, Muslims are not, And Allah is stating here in the Holy Quran, which was given to Prophet Muhammad to recite and record approximately 1400 years ago. It says, "This day I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor to you and chosen for you Islam as your religion." That message, this day, could not have been relevant to Prophet Muhammad at that time. So this day must have been a prophecy of a future event, simply because we know that we were, first off, black folks wasn't even in the hills of North America 1400 years ago. We were still in Africa or across the planet. We were still in various areas across the planet. And I have to say that because a lot of people now are attempting to say that the transatlantic slave trade didn't happen. I think we are so limited in our view of the global atmosphere that we cut ourselves off from different areas of truth. And the truth is that the original man can be found across the planet. Now, it says here, "This day I have perfected for you your religion." And so we give thanks to Allah, who had to come in the person himself and Master Farah Muhammad and raise up a messenger amongst us in the person of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad to show us a completed favor. And that day, this day, and I don't want to get too far into prophecy, but we do have the day in which the moon was split. And so I wanted to, instead of going too heavily into the technical verb of complete, I wanted to imagine what complete looks like. It says, "What does complete look like?" And so, with that being said, I looked into the thesaurus on page 129, and it says, complete. It says, "Not lacking any part or member that properly belongs to it." A synonym is comprehensive, entire, full, grand, intact, integral, perfect, plenary, total, and whole. It says brought or having come to an end. It says covering everything or all important points. It also says to bring something to a state where nothing remains to be done. So this is what tells me that Islam must be perfect, but Muslims are not. Because Islam in the Holy Quran says, "This day I have perfected for you." We understand that perfect and complete they are synonymous according to Merriam-Webster. But complete not only means whole, but it also means that there is nothing left to be done. So we understand that if this day that Allah has perfected for us our religion and completed his favor on us, and we say in the Fatiha, or the opening prayer, "In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, all praises are due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the beneficent, the most merciful, master of this day of judgment in which we now live. Thee alone do we worship, and thee alone do we ask for help. Guide us on the right path, the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not the path of those upon whom thy wrath has been brought down, nor of those who go astray." So if it says here, "This day I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor," and our opening prayer is praying to be amongst those who are granted favor, in which has been completed in this day of judgment in which we now live, we have an example of what complete looks like. Yet, because there is still work yet to be done, as Muslims, we have not submitted completely to Islam. So that's what I'm asking. What does complete look like? If Islam is complete and perfect, according to the Holy Quran, according to history, Yet there is still work that needs to be done. What does complete look like in the world if Islam is perfect? Something for us to think about. And that's how we opened our prayer today. My Lord, grant me that I may be grateful for thy favor, in which thou hast bestowed on me and my family, and that I may do good even as thou art pleased with, and admit me by thy mercy among thy righteous servants. So here in Holy Quran 5:3, I say it again, this day I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor to you and chosen for you Islam as your religion. And I thought that it was important to recognize the concept of complete. Because if in the Holy Quran is saying, I have perfected this for you, and I understand that you have needs, and instead of you falling victim to your needs of your lower desire and finding this solution in every other place other than where the truth is, I give you Islam. I've completed my favor to answer those questions of your desire. Because remember, we went in psychology that the human faculty, the mind and the body, are both designed for the need to believe in a being higher than ourselves. The body is designed to believe in a being higher than ourselves. It is designed with the need to believe in something greater than self. This is what we learned in psychology. And a lot of the times what happens is, this is why amongst the quote unquote atheist community, you have a higher amount of depression because they don't view anything outside of themselves that is greater than. Or people who are agnostic. There's a difference between atheists and agnostics, but atheists believe that there is no God, which is ironic. How do you believe in something doesn't exist? The very belief that something doesn't exist means that you believe that it exists. Anyway, and then agnostic means that you believe, you just can't readily know. So you don't believe anybody's got the truth, but you know that there's some truth out there, which I can actually respect. As a Muslim, I can respect an agnostic because the way that the devil operates and deceives the entire planet, he had to use a little bit of truth mixed with a whole bunch of falsehood to deceive the entire planet. So you'll benefit more as an agnostic to say, man, I know there's truth, but I just don't believe in nothing that y'all talking about. You'll benefit more than you would to say, I picked that deception and I'm gonna embody that deception. So we are going to transition into the book here, An Invincible Truth, written by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's called An Invincible Truth. Today's subject in Invincible Truth is Islam for the so-called Negro. And if I'm having a conversation with the homie, and I'm like, you know what? Basically, if I'm translating it into common language, Islam for some niggas. This is what we about to get into. We're gonna get into Islam is for some niggas. Now, and that's the closest thing to the truth because, like I said before, due to the music that we listening to, due to all the TV and stuff, I got high school students. I used to have high school students, and it didn't matter if they was black. They was from everywhere: Mexico, El Salvador. They was from, had roots in China, Asian, whatever. They was all saying nigga, and I'm like, why y'all talking like this? The truth of the matter is that that's what happens. Is we've been so conditioned. Everybody is some niggas now, and that's, I'm not gonna say it's okay, but that's a great starting point. If I could say, okay, so you identify as nigga, it's cool for you to say nigga, even though you ain't quote unquote black, because I don't believe that there's a synonym between black and niggas. I don't. I think anybody can be a nigga according to the definition. So if Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is giving us and it says Islam for so-called Negro, and I'm saying that today in today's time is basically niggas. So this is Islam for Islam for some niggas. It's Islam for some so-called niggas. So if you got some homies and you like, what's up, nigga? That's my nigga. Islam is for you. If you like, man, these niggas is crazy. Islam is for them. If you say, you know what? I'm a real nigga. Islam is for you. Islam, I should change the title. Islam, I can't do that. But Islam is for some niggas, basically. Islam for the so-called niggas. All right? Just to say plainly. Just to say it plainly. What's going on, Mac and Snacks? Welcome in, welcome in. I'm as soon as we're done with this article, we get into it. I'm gonna go in and then we open it up for conversation. Really, what we're doing is training your attention span, which I can't even eliminate myself. I'm training my attention span because when you on Instagram, you got 7 seconds of attention till you scroll. When you on TikTok, even less. When you're on YouTube, you might have a little bit longer form of video, but we're training our attention spans to hold tight onto the rope of Allah or to some knowledge that's going to keep us grounded, keep us elevating, keep us knowledgeable. All right, so we have here March the 2nd, 1957. Today is March the 2nd, 2025. So that's what we're doing. We're striving to align ourselves with this relevant knowledge that was written 68 years ago to the day. And that's what we're getting studies in, because a lot of people say, oh, that's that dead knowledge. That's not accurate. Yeah, all right. It says here, Islam for the so-called Negroes, and I'm saying Islam for some so-called niggas. It says, I seek refuge in the Lord of the Dawn from the evil of that which he, Yaqub, has created. That's the Caucasians we were talking about before, the Europeans. Those that have evil intentions on the original people of the planet. And from the evil of intense darkness when it comes. And from the evil of those who cast evil suggestions in firm resolutions. And from the evil of the envier when he envies. The Holy Quran 113. It says, the dawn of a new day has arrived to seek our place in that which is new. We must have a guide. Allah God has always provided guides for those who seek to walk in his path. We should hasten ourselves to the light of truth as we hasten to get ourselves into the light of the day, the sun. The light of Allah God is even greater than the light of our day, the sun. I'm gonna say that again. That reminds me of the dream. It says the light of Allah God is even greater than the light of our day, the sun. We must learn to be intelligent enough to distinguish truth from falsehood and seek refuge in the God of truth. Now, before we continue, I just want to remind us of the day that we're living in. If you, let's just say you not even have any access to any religious scripture or anything like that. You don't believe in no prophecy. You're not aware of any prophecy. I can categorize myself in that same category of, even though I have now found myself submitting to these teachings and striving to be upright, I still have not been completely exposed to prophecies like that. I'm not too familiar with prophecies, and I've never really been super interested in prophecies, because my thinking is if I submit to Allah, things gonna happen the way they're supposed to happen. And I still believe that. However, if other people say you are not even familiar with prophecies either, you could still recognize that the times that we living in, even according to history, is still something is happening, something is going on. Now, I am of the knowledge that, for one, history repeats itself, and most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches that history is best qualified to those who reward our research. History is best qualified to reward our research. History is best qualified to reward our research. So the more you study history, the more you rewarded in the ability to see what's going on today. So I'm very aware of things that happen in history that are seeming like they exist today. I just had a conversation with a brother of mine. You know, many of us might not remember Y2K. Y2K, everybody said that was the end of the world. They was coming from 1999. They said Y2K, that was the end, and that's it. Same thing happened in 2012. Everybody talked about the end. Well, the more you look into spiritual history and spiritual events, that 2012 marker, I was, man, in 2000, I was like, I think 7 years old. So I was just going along. All I remember in Y2K was that my parents had a whole closet in our kitchen full of just basically preparation. We was prepared for whatever. Had food, had toilet paper, had a whole bunch. Even have dog food and rabbit food. We had a little rabbit at the time. The whole closet was just full of things that we may have needed just in case. We was prepared for, at least that limited time, because there was no telling what was going to happen in Y2K. Same thing in 2012 when they said, oh, the Mayan calendar said, or the Aztec calendar said that it was going to be the end of the world. Well, they said that because they didn't have a proper understanding of basically the teachings of Most High Elijah Muhammad. Most High Elijah Muhammad said that it's an end of the rule of the Caucasians. It's the rule of the quote unquote white supremacy. Now, with all that being said, I recognize that if a dog is being put into a corner, that you got to be careful, because same thing in the art of war. Do not completely surround an enemy. Always leave an avenue free. Never press a desperate foe too hard, because when you make somebody fight to the death, that's exactly what they'll do. If you make somebody fight to the death, that's what they will do. They will fight to either your death or theirs, or both. And many of us may have been put in predicaments where we will fight for our life. So I understand that throughout history, there has been when a woman is giving birth, labor is just not one time. It's just not like, oh, yep, you go through one long process of pain and then boom, you give birth. Now that's not how it happens. What happens is as the water breaks, the woman experiences waves of pain, waves of labor, waves of contractions is what they call. And so I recognize that that's also what's happening, giving a birth to a new, as the Most High Elijah Muhammad is telling us, that a new kingdom or a new Islam, a new completion as a human being, a righteous way of life is on its way. So I recognize that throughout history, we've seen cycles of these things happening. And so if you are not even familiar with any type of prophecy, any type of religion, anything like that, you can still bear witness to the waves of pain that is going on, especially in the hills of North America. You understand that the economy is crashing, that prices all over the place are rising. Gas prices are crazy. Even with Donald Trump having negotiations publicly with Ukraine, and basically he's removing diplomacy. He has no desire for peace. It is what it is. You're going to do it or you ain't. Putting people in a predicament, pushing a desperate foe too hard, not utilizing the art of war, which the fall of America is prophesied. So with all that being said, even if you're not too much in tune with quote unquote God or any type of spirituality, we can still recognize that these days and times are unlike anything in our lifetime or a continuation of the labor pains from history. You can still recognize that. And so what the Most High Elijah Muhammad is causing us to do, or calling us to do, is to prepare for these times. So it says here, the dawn of a new day has arrived. To seek our place in that which is new, we must have a guide. Allah God has always provided guides for those who seek to walk in his path. We should hasten ourselves to the light of truth as we hasten to get ourselves into the light of the day, the sun. The light of Allah God is even greater than the light of our day, the sun. We must learn to be intelligent enough to distinguish truth from falsehood and seek refuge in the God of truth. The reason why this reminds me of my dream that I had, that I was sharing with you all earlier, is that the light that was blinding me, I could barely see. I was thinking that it was the sun, but it didn't matter which direction I turned. Like I said, I went into my truck, and I still couldn't see completely. And so I'm reading this and it's reminding me of that. And again, like I said, I went and searched on the meaning. It says, if we shall know the truth, John 8:32, and the truth will make us free. And I want us to keep that in mind, where John 8:32, we've all been told that the Bible says the truth shall set us free. And whenever the scripture utilizes words and the preachers project these words on us, it's to program our minds to think in a certain way. So the Bible, we've been told in John 8:32, has always said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free, right? But the Bible here is actually saying we shall know the truth, and the truth will make us free. Now, to set means that a door is going to be open out of your captivity and you're going to be able to walk out free. But the Bible is saying it will make you free. So that means we have to expose ourselves to this truth and then build upon it. It's a process of making, or it's a process of forming our minds. It's a program to get us out of this captivity, which is deception, which is poverty, which is ignorance, which is dependency, slavery, all these things, slavery, suffering, and death. So it says here, we can truthfully say that we already have long since known the truth that Jesus was referring to was yet to come, not in his days, in John 16:8-13. If that truth had been revealed 2,000 years ago, he's saying, if that truth had been revealed 2,000 years ago, there would not be any falsehood in the world. However, Jesus, being a prophet, foresaw the future and the end of the devil's rule. Seek refuge from the evil of that which he, Yaqub, created or made. It says, the father Yaqub of this world created a world of evil, discord, and hate. The father Yaqub of this world created a world of evil, discord, and hate. If you do not agree with their evil doings, your goodness is then called hate or infidel and peace breaker. That reminds me again in history. I don't know if any of y'all remember after Y2K, I believe it was the very next year was 9/11, 2001. And that was basically war on Muslims. It was war on Islam. They blamed the quote unquote Muslims for crashing some planes into the building. Now, in this day and time, the truth is being revealed that it was actually what everybody was saying was an inside job. There was, coercion and deception, and they say that jet fuel can't melt steel beams and things like that. But what that is saying here is, if you remember, during that time, they would allow, on CNN, they would allow these quote unquote terrorist leaders to speak, and they would say, oh, Americans are infidels and things like that. When in reality, where it says here, if you do not agree with their evil doings, your goodness is then called hate or infidel and peace breaker. The irony when it comes to the media is most times when the finger is pointed to the bad guy, he was actually just not in agreements with American views. He was not in agreements with how America operates. That's usually how it is internationally. They'll look at these different leaders and call them tyrants and dictatorships, and they're oppressing their people. And America's got to go in and spread democracy. That means that the leader is doing well for their people. They're most likely financially stable, and they have resources that America wants to take advantage of. It's very simple. But in the media, and what they have to do is they've got to demonize these people so that the American public won't basically what's going on now in Palestine won't be basically disagree with and protest against it. That's the whole thing with the government. They want to prevent revolution. Okay, so, but that's how they do it in the media. It says, if you do not agree with their evil doings, your goodness is then called hate or infidel and peace breaker. So when you see the American media saying that someone is teaching hate, if you're intelligent, listen to it to see for yourself. If they're saying that they're warmongers or causing war, or they're saying infidels or non-believers, or they're not in alignment, most times the United States media won't say something like infidel, but they will say that they're not in alignment with Christian values. I know we've heard that before. Oh, they're not in alignment with Christian values. If the media is saying something like that, then I would suggest you listen to it for yourself and see if there's some truth to what the person is saying. See what they're saying, see what they're doing, and see if it is true what the American media is saying about it. Don't just be dependent on the news because it's programming. So it says here, the father, excuse me, this world of Christianity has gone mad, and they think that every cry is against them. They are like robbers who have robbed and are afraid that they will be recognized by their victims. Thieves know that light makes them manifest. That's what we're seeing what's going on. Since Christianity has falsely accused Jesus as being her founder, oh, listen to that. Since Christianity has falsely accused Jesus as being her founder, she is now being plagued with spiritual darkness and confusion, cause and effect. Under such darkness, the prophet and his followers, the Muslims, are warned to seek refuge in the light of Allah God. For under such spiritual darkness, the wicked seek to persecute and kill the prophet of Islam and his followers. They are mad and cannot see nor hear the truth, so they call the truth false, and the false they call truth. The truth, Islam, has angered them, Christianity, and the nations, Christianity, were angry. Thy wrath is come, the time of the dead, that the time that the mental dead, black nation especially. Now listen to that language. I'll say it again. It says, thy wrath has come, the time of the dead. Remember, we're living in the day of resurrection. In order to resurrect, you must be dead. So it says, the time of the dead, the time of the mental dead black nation. Listen, the mental dead black nation, especially the so-called Negro, especially so-called Negro. So this is all encompassing, as we spoke on before. It's not limited. Now, of course, we had already defined Negro, but in this context, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is making reference to the so-called Negroes in America, but he's also encompassing or adding to say that the mentally dead black nation all over the planet, which we'll get into. I saw the sister's comment that I really want to address. It says, and the nations, Christianity, were angry. Thy wrath is come, the time of the dead, the time that the mental dead black nation, especially the so-called Negro, must come into the knowledge of the truth, of their enemies and the enemy's false religion that was used to deceive them. Thy shall give reward unto thy servants, the prophets and the saints, and will destroy them which destroy the earth. Bible, Revelations 11:18. This, man, I'm going to read that one more time so that we can think. It says, thy shall give reward unto thy servants, the prophets and the saints, and will destroy them which destroy the earth. So that causes us to think. I remember when I was teaching over in Oakland, I asked them, I said, go on the board, and every single person listed one attribute that the Bible describes of the devil without a physical description. I told them, I gave each one a marker, and I said, go on the board and write a description of what you vision the devil minus the physical description. So I don't want to see anybody putting red or horns or tails or goats. I want you to write the physical description. So they put, liar, destroyer, warmonger, all these different descriptions. And then I asked them, just like it says here, we will destroy them which destroy the earth. So out of all the people on the planet that have been in existence since the beginning of time, who has caused, according to history, the most destruction? Who aligns most closely to what you have described here on this board, minus the physical description of being red with horns, as we've been programmed to believe? It says the white Christians and the Jews are the guilty race. They have persecuted and killed the prophets of Islam and their followers. the Muslims or black people in general. They have persecuted and killed the prophets of Islam and their followers, the Muslims or black people in general. Now, should not they be destroyed or get what they put out? Cause and effect. It says Christianity, again, I want to make mention that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is separating Christianity from the teachings of Jesus. He's saying those are two different things. So we, as Muslims, believe in the teachings of Jesus. We believe in the prophethood of Jesus. We believe in the works of Jesus. We just don't believe that the Christians are teaching the teachings of Jesus. So it says Christianity is so afraid of the true religion, Islam. Also believe that Jesus taught Islam. Awakening the mental dead so-called Negroes to the knowledge of truth that in nearly every Negro church you will see a white Christian sitting in on the meeting to watch and see that the dead do not rise. They try to prevent it, the awakening of the so-called Negro, as they know the so-called Negroes think that that is an honor to have them present. Say again. They try to prevent it, the awakening of the so-called Negro, of the awakening of niggas, as they know the niggas think that is an honor to have them present. However, oh, I see what it's saying. The niggas think that it's an honor to have white people present in their churches, not recognizing that the white people that are present is there to make sure that they don't rise. They are trying to make the so-called Negroes believe they too are the beloved of God. Then why not believe in Allah? Seek refuge in Allah from the envier when he envies. The success of the messenger and his followers of Islam are envied by the enemies, and they are not leaving a stone unturned in trying to stop the light truth of Allah God with their mouths. Allah God will perfect his light through the Allah God will perfect his light though the polytheists be adverse. Holy Quran 61. They, Christians, are mad and so afraid of being manifested by the light of Allah God and his true religion, Islam. They fulfill that which is written of them. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord, Allah and his messenger, and against his anointed. Psalms 2:1. You must remember that the above said is not referring to the Jesus time of 2,000 years ago. Jesus was not made the ruler or king of the Jews. Interesting. Nor can he ever be made such. The devil is working many tricks on the so-called Negro, or the devil is working many tricks on niggas today to deceive them, for they, the devils, know that their time is up. They know that the so-called Negroes still believe in them as divine guides. Heaven is offered to the niggas and hell to his enemies. Which one will they, so-called Negroes, believe? So it's asking us that question. That's the end of the article. And so I just want us to consider these things, how the lessons make us look at our current condition. And I'm right along with you in that, is just taking a look at our condition to see where we have been affected by American values, where America is the creator of niggas. America and American values created niggas. The Caucasians, the Europeans that had evil intentions for the people on the planet are the ones who created or murdered us around the planet. Murdered us literally, physically, as well as murdered us mentally, and murdered us spiritually, murdered us economically. Stole from us our economic base. Stole from us our faith. You can't steal someone's faith, but stealing from us our imagery of our God, our spiritual base, economic base, spiritual base, our health, our way of life, the diet and foods that we're supposed to eat, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, as well as financial. Those bases were removed from us by the Europeans who had evil intentions on us being the original people on the face of the planet Earth. With that being said, now I'm going to open it up for our questions comments, concerns. I'm going to read through these comments that I have and address them because I was really looking forward to this. The brother said no fast forward. That's in reference to what we were speaking on before in terms of having to take our time. There's no get rich quick. Uh, well, when we say scheme, that's what it is. There's no get rich quick solutions. There's only schemes. And if somebody comes to you and they say they got a get rich quick business idea, 9 times out of 10, you are the one they scheming on. So, okay. The sister said, I pray she's still here. Did I mistakenly hear you say Polynesians were brought over here as Negroes? And if so, why were Polynesians considered Caucasian? Okay, so that's a lot that we've got to, they like to say unpack, but we got to detangle. Did I mistakenly hear you say Polynesians were brought over here as Negroes? That was a mistake on your part. Yes, ma'am. And I'm not familiar of Polynesians being considered Caucasian. I'm not familiar with that. That's something that you might have to go and look and then bring it to me so that I can read it for myself to understand. I've never heard that, and I do not consider that as being fact. So I do want to untangle some of your mistake that you heard. So did I hear you say Polynesians were brought over here as Negroes? And if so, okay. So the second part of your statement is incorrect. Oh no, excuse me. The second part of your statement I have never heard. So I would never make that statement that Polynesians were considered Caucasian. However, the first part of your statement is not the statement that I made. The statement that I made, and you can find this under the title of Black Birding. So if you want to, and I sister island baby, I believe you Hawaiian, if I'm not mistaken, or some form of Polynesian. If you want to know more about that, it's called Black Birding. If you just go on Google right now and you Google Black Birding, it'll show you, and think about this term, Black Birding, black, not brown birding, not nothing else, Black Birding, birding, BLACK BIRDING. You can look it up right now. And what it'll do is it'll tell you that the Europeans kidnapped original people on the Isles. So if you're not familiar with islands, maybe you are, but those of us who are not familiar with the islands, they are a chain. So most inhabited islands are island chains. Even in Hawaii, there are 9 islands in the chain, if I'm mistaken, excuse me. In Samoa, there's a chain of islands. In the Philippines, there are 7,107 islands. And so there's an island chain. So what happened is that these Europeans started on one part of the island chain, kidnapped people, original people who they are known as black people, and brought them to different islands along the chain. So they kidnapped them from Fiji and brought them to, the Solomon Islands or the Tonga or Samoa, and they brought them across these different islands they kidnapped them, not brought, they kidnapped them. Just like the transatlantic slave trade that happened in 1555 and 1612 or 1619, excuse me. The same process was happening in the isles of the Pacific Ocean, that people were being kidnapped from their homes on the islands and brought to other islands for the purpose of free labor. They made them work in the plantations. They made them work in the fields. Same thing that was happening. The transatlantic is the same thing that happened. That's how you get all these different mixes on these islands. So it was called, if you want to look it up, it's called Black Birding. So that's what I was referring to. I didn't say that Polynesians were brought over here as Negroes. They were viewed already as Negroes. They was already viewed as niggas, Negroes, as black, as basically island niggas, Negroes. They was already viewed. They already viewed indigenous and native people on these islands. They were already viewing them as black. Even if you fast forward, I believe in the 1800s, they called Hawaiians coconut niggas. They called them, no, excuse me, they called them island niggas, just like they call the Arab sand niggas. So what I'm saying is that everywhere that these Europeans traveled, they called us niggas. They called us Negro. And so we are the ones, and understandably so. I just had this conversation with my wife. Understandably so, we will take how they've divided us and then identify with that. So I'm not Polynesian, I'm Micronesian, I'm Melanesian, I'm not Tongan, I'm not Samoan, I'm Solomonic Island, these different labels, which I understand. As human beings, we want identity. We want to identify as a certain portion. Even the Holy Quran has said, have um, I cause you to live in tribes. And please excuse me for not having the actual factual um, verse. Matter of fact, because I don't want to do too many. I have made you into tribes. Okay. Now we understand that we got the tribe of Shabazz and we got the 12 tribes of in the Bible. And this is what I do. Like if I'm not even here on Instagram and I'm throughout my week and I'm studying and a verse comes into mind or a thought comes into mind, what I'll do is I'll Google it to see if it's in the Bible or the Quran so I can align myself with those different thoughts. It says, we have made you into nations and tribes. That's what the Holy Quran says in chapter 49, verse 13. So understandably, why us as a people will fall into nations and tribes. It's natural. Here in the Holy Quran says we have made you into. Now, the fact that we're in nations and tribes should not and will not be reason for war, for division, for misunderstanding and miscommunication. Just because you have yours and I have mine doesn't mean we got to fight about it. We can have disagreements, but there's a point in time in our life where we can have civil disagreements and civil conversations. This is the point of diplomacy. But we have not been conditioned to look to what diplomacy looks like. You can see what Trump is doing in the public. That's not diplomacy. That what we're seeing is how do they say in they say that's fighting words. That's fighting words. Yeah, and we're familiar with that. We're familiar with fighting words. But I'm saying that we can get to a point in time where diplomacy will reign supreme. Righteousness will reign supreme. That we don't got to agree on everything. But just because we don't agree doesn't mean that we got to fight about it. You can have, the Holy Quran says, to your religion be your way and to my way be mine. Okay. Sister said, thank you for correcting that for me. I'm only asking because my mother is Hawaiian. Yep. But on her birth certificate, her parents are considered Caucasian and they are both full-blooded Hawaiian. Now that's interesting. Now I don't want to, because I don't readily know. So I'm not saying that I have the answer. But what I would suggest is learning more about that, because if you ever come to Hawaii, where you said your mom is Hawaiian and both her parents are full-blooded Hawaiian, which is an anomaly. It doesn't even exist really today in these days and time. Certain, they say, got the cocoa, the blood. People who have the blood, they have to prove it in order to get different benefits. Now, that's a Caucasian thing, to say, oh, show me on the paperwork, and then you can get, they've got Hawaiian homelands, which is a scheme. They saying, oh, you can lease this land for 20 between 20 and 30 years, but you can't pass it on to your family. That's devilishness. Anyway, and then also back when I first moved when my family moved us to Hawaii, in order to get allowed into the Kamehameha schools, you had to be in a certain percentage of Hawaiian, and you had to prove that you were a certain percentage of Hawaiian. I think now, I haven't followed that too much, but I think now they've kind of removed that because it was along the lines of prejudice, I believe. I'm not too familiar. But anyway, I would look into that, because if they had put that on your birth certificate, knowing as a fact that they had Hawaiian blood, but they put on the birth certificate that they were Caucasian, it could have been. Now, again, I'm just saying look into it. I'm not saying this is what it is. I don't know. But it could have been a ploy, just like how, man, playing with the paperwork. They have done that in the past when it comes to treaties, when it comes to us as original people laying claim to certain lands and things like that, playing with the paperwork and saying, if you ever took it upon yourself to go home and get land that is rightfully yours, and they say, let me see your paperwork. Oh no, you, what you mean you Hawaiian? It says here Caucasian. What you talking about? And because I don't know, but I'm thinking that there really is no other way to prove. How can you go by, unless you go to your mother? No, excuse me. Let me see. My mother is Hawaiian, but on her birth certificate, her parents are considered Caucasian. Okay. Now, I would ask you, if on her birth certificate are the parents listed her actual parents? Like, was she adopted or fostered? That would be the first thing I would look at. But it's a birth certificate, so I don't see that actually being. Um, I don't see that happening. But what I would say is go back and see if her parents, who were full-blooded Hawaiian, go look at their birth certificates. If their birth certificate says that Hawaiian on there and nothing else, and both the mom and the father has Hawaiian on there and nothing else, then that you have proof to say that on their birth certificate it says one thing, but on your mother's birth certificate it says something else, so it's not accurate. And then now you have, I don't know which way to go from there, but that's where I would start. Because I don't believe, the only time I've ever seen something like that is when it comes to Arabs. I do know that sometimes, especially today, when a quote unquote Arab will come over, I believe from like Egypt, or they come over from different Arab lands, and then they want to, they call it immigrate into, into the United States. If you check the certificate after the fact, they'll be labeled as Caucasian. So when they go out and fill the form, it'll, they won't have Arab on there. They'll fill in Caucasian. I have seen that many times. And some Arabs are okay with that. Some Arabs are, because they, just like many of us, have been deceived into thinking that having white and white privilege is something that is good for the long term, and it's not. Okay, so that will be my suggestion. These comments just popped up on YouTube. They were not here before, so I wasn't able to see them before. um my wife said LOL. I don't know what was so funny. I don't remember. um my father, you remember that Y2K? Absolutely. I absolutely remember Y2K. It was like a computer slash end of the world, and it was a whole bunch of stuff. And then I remember in 2001, if I'm not mistaken, that's when 9/11. I remember the day of 9/11. Um, yeah, there are 9 named islands. Okay, in the isles, um, of Hawaii. Okay, there are 9 named islands of Hawaii. Islands instigating. Okay, and then simulate. I don't understand the context. Um, Maybe in the future, when you make comments, if we want to address them in the future, or at this time where we address comments, maybe you can keep the context so that we can bring it back. Thank you. I appreciate your help on this. All praise due to Allah. Yes, ma'am. Whatever I can do to help. Um, I didn't even recognize that was a, but playing with the paperwork. It won't be the first time. United States have never maintained any treaty with any native group of people, whether it be quote unquote natives who are here in America, whether it be the native Hawaiians, native in Puerto Rico, they call them the Tainos, the native in the anywhere have never maintained any treaty. So they do not have, in terms of our lesson says, have you not learned that your word shall be bond? So they have not maintained their word, even though that's a quote unquote American value of maintaining your word. And even though that's a quote unquote Christian value of keeping your word, they have not done so. And if we believe um, in today's terms, you would call it karma, but in the Hindu tradition or the Hindu religion, karma does not equate to cause and effect as how we are using it in today's society. So I don't want to utilize the term karma to mean cause and effect. When really, when we're talking about the universal principles, the principles in which the universe has been created in, one of those principles or one of those laws is cause and effect. And so that's what we're speaking on today is cause and effect. And they have brought these things into effect by their cause. And not keeping your word was the cause of the things that we going on, traveling the earth and destroying these people who have connect. You look at these posts on Instagram and you've got these trees that were, and I don't want to over exaggerate, but like hundreds of feet and just huge trees. And then the next picture you see that a group of foresters, the Caucasian loggers, have cut it down and they smiling next to it. Or you see these pictures of these huge animals, elephants and giraffes and lions and tigers and rhinos, these humongous animals. And then they're taking pictures of them dead and smiling. And you would ask, what inside of you would want to kill something that's connected to the origins of the planet? These things have been in existence for longer than the European has. The European, according to science, has only traced back 6,000 years. And these animals, especially the trees, trace back to even further than that. So what about it in their nature wants to destroy everything they come across? Now, I will say this. If we can see these pictures, for those of us who are still in doubt, we see these pictures of these hunters who are Caucasian, and they're killing these animals, cutting down these trees. What makes us think that they wouldn't be willing to do that and have not done that to human beings? These animals are bigger, they're more majestic. Why wouldn't they be, according to logic, wouldn't they do that same thing to the people? I know they saying that giants used to exist, large human beings used to exist. I know here on the islands, you got huge, large, beautiful people, and they're being destroyed from the diet, being destroyed from not having a place to live, and literally destroyed. It's crazy. Okay. Oh man. If we have any other questions, comments, concerns, um, anything, topics that we want to speak on. Oh, I do want to publicly say I appreciate the brother Farad. If you're watching, or if you end up watching uh, this now, like in the future, you're watching it, I want to say publicly, I appreciate you reaching out, asking questions, always keeping me on my toes with that one. Um, brother asked some great questions. Um, what I'll do is I'll do my best to document them and answer them here so that we can all, because I know if one person's thinking about it, there has to be more than one person thinking about it and just not having the time to articulate their thoughts in order to make it into a question. And if I don't know, I'll say I don't know. um, I'm reminded that I do want to stop saying so much, using filler words. But with that being said, I do appreciate you joining me thus far. I do want to say congratulations simply because in today's society, our attention spans have been diminished so much that the most common of us, the average person's attention span has shrunk from 15 seconds to 7 or to 5 seconds. And social media has conditioned us to have shorter attention spans. So I just want to say congratulations for being outside or above average in terms of your attention span. And that's one of the things that are going to get us to grow and develop, our growth and development, and to elevate, because it's almost impossible to elevate your mind with a short attention span. And so I just want to say congratulations for that, for being able to hold on to a thought and to share this time with me. If you have any questions, I'm on Instagram, YouTube, and I post these videos on Facebook as well. And feel free to reach out to me. We can have a conversation, ask questions. I love to, get to know you more, and that way, um, I have more information. Like if you have questions, I can take the time to look into it, and it also causes me to go further into my studies as well, and I can bring it forth and in the public to show what that process looks like in my life, and maybe we can have that experience together. So I do want to thank you for joining me thus far. I'll greet you as I came in the universal understanding of peace, of Assalamu alaikum.